This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex 7.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LogRX.com.
If you really take a good look at this emergency response standard, man, this had to take years to write, years, and I think it did, and
it had all the major players
right
putting that thing together. International Association of Fire Chiefs, International Association of Firefighters, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, a lot of the organizations that we live with, National Volunteer Fire Council.
Welcome to the Backstep, everybody. This is Ronnie K in New York, and my partner in crime there, Tommy A, out in New Mexico. What's going on, Tommy, in your end of the world?
Actually, I don't want to use the Q word, but it looks like the wildfire season, at least in this part of the country, has slowed a bit. I know that things on the West Coast don't look like it's slowing down any, but I think we're getting a little breather here. Temperatures starting to drop a little bit, and we're getting into the fall season.
All right, with the Q word meaning quicksand. You don't use that word.
Quiet.
Oh, he said it. He said it. You're not supposed. It's like Voldemort. It's like Voldemort. You're not supposed to say the word, you know. So it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, the weather's been beautiful. It hasn't rained in about a week. It's been low humidity. I mean, this is like perfect fall weather. It's a little warm. It got like to 80-ish today, but we'll take it, man. We had such a high temperature, high humidity, wet summer. It was terrible. So we're getting a little bit of respite here in the fall here in the Northeast. So it's welcome. Of course, it hasn't rained in a week. All the guys on TV are screaming drought. We're in a drought.
Yeah.
Okay. I went past the reservoir today with Fran. We took a ride to our sister's house, right? And the reservoir is right up to here, and I don't see a drought. I don't see nothing. Plenty of water. All right. So water your lawns, wash your cars, take a shower, take 2 showers, please. We're good.
A while. Hey, I did want to offer my congrats to you on your new position. I think that is phenomenal. And can you tell everybody what your new gig is?
No. Well, yeah. I first of all, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. But I had a long talk with the boss, the chief of fire prevention, Chief Tom Correo, who is a 4-star assistant chief, and a lot of stuff I've been doing for the last couple of years. I'm handing off to different groups, and I was immersed in training. And we have a great little training academy just for the bureau, and I have a director and a bunch of guys, and they're just running with the ball, man. They're terrific. And so with that, I was pulling in special projects and all that kind of stuff. And then I said, one of the projects we have an LNG facility in Brooklyn. It's been there since the late 60s, early 70s. It was owned originally by Brooklyn Union Gas, was the company back then, and now it's National Grid. And they put in a set of plans in the last probably 18 months ago to upgrade all their fire protection, change out the fire pumps, do this, do that, and there's a reason why I'm telling you the story. So they also designed a new drafting site for 4 engine, like if their saltwater system shits the bed, 4 pumpers can come into this pad and hopefully draft out of the saltwater system that they're on a place called Newtown Creek going through Brooklyn, Queens area. So I start looking at the plans, and I'm asking. He showed them to me. He says, "I want to get your input on this real quick." And engineering's been looking at the plans already, but they don't look at our engineering people. They look at the technical, the code stuff. They don't look at the response and the operational side. So I start asking them 2,000 or 3,000 questions about alternate water, the drafting. I said, I don't know if that's going to work. And we're talking about foam. We're talking about dry chem, and then I got online with the IAFC industrial fire safety section guys. They were having their meeting out at the fire rescue, and they actually beamed me in, and I was able to ask questions to their board of directors. That worked out great. Our buddy Redman Flegel was out there at the meeting. I hadn't seen Red in a long time, but those guys were great, and they offered a lot of. And they said, by the way, no foam. You're just going to piss it off if you do that. You'll piss the fire off. So we got into this whole discussion, and then I looked at the drafting. So my boss is saying, where were you getting all of this, like, tactical stuff? And, and I said, I was a chief in a facility like this for 20 years. And he goes, I read your resume. He says, I forgot. So from that conversation, more of this with this LNG plant, and then I contacted Vision. I contacted Water as Pump. I did a whole background thing about drafting, and then we sat down one day a few weeks ago, and I said, with this project and all those coming down the pike, high-rise, tall, mass timber buildings we're looking at in New York City. We're looking at alternative living conditions, like you can fix your basement up and put sprinklers in and have people come and live there. You can build another house behind your house and have people come and live there, because we have a housing crisis and all. So with all of that, I said, maybe I should move up to the 7th floor, and because I'm back and forth with operations on a million things already, like a liaison position. And he said, write it up. And we went upstairs and spoke to the chief of ops, and he says, this is long overdue. We should have did this 50 years ago, having somebody from fire prevention on the operations floor. That's kind of how it happened. So I'm up on 7, which is fire operations and EMS operations. They split the floor, and the chief of ops is up there right now. John Esposito is the acting chief of department, but he was the chief of ops, so his office is still there. Chief Kevin Woods is the acting chief of operations, and then they have a bunch of staff chiefs that do what they do. So and they get their chance to put their hands on me. They spread the word. So now I'm getting calls from division commanders and battalion chiefs about, hey, we went to this building, we're not sure about this or that. I said, all right, you know what? I'll refer it out to the right gang. We'll get an inspector out there. So I'll tell you a great one we just had, real quick. I get a call from Two Truck in Midtown. He says, brand new high rise, 38 stories, the 4 penthouse apartments on the top. They all have natural gas barbecue grills on the terrace. We've never seen this before. So we have a construction, demolition, and abatement unit, CDA, that monitors construction on buildings or demolition on buildings. CDA was stood up after the Deutsche Bank fire. Okay, where we lost 2 guys, Deutsche Bank in 07. So I give that right to the chief inspector in charge of CDA. He gets a guy out there the next morning, comes back, certificate of occupancy, the building department, it's all approved. It's hot pipe natural gas into the grills. They're on the terrace. They're enough feet away from the entrance door. They're illegal. So those are the kinds of things. So I'm back and forth. I'm in that rocking chair between fire prevention and operations. And I love being there, because I've been in that rocking chair my whole life, just about, all the time, Tommy, all the time I spent on the line, I always maintained my credentials as a fire prevention guy, whether it was New Jersey as a fire official. I went to Connecticut. I got my fire marshal's license. I always maintain that, because I think that it made me a better chief, frankly. It made me a better tactical guy. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm enjoying it. It's great.
But your philosophy that I've carried through the years of firefighter safety begins with fire prevention. It makes perfectly good sense. Yep. And I'm just really excited that you're in that position and had the ability to kind of cross paths, if you would, between ops and prevention.
Yeah, and they thought it was a great idea too. It's funny, because the chief of operations, the acting chief currently, Chief Woods, he said to me, and he has the code on his desk. He says, I get calls from like my division commanders, and they're asking me code questions. He said, I try to give it a quick one. And if I can, he says, I give it to the chief of fire prevention, and it goes around and around. He says, now that we can get our hands on a guy right here, we could solve problems quicker. I said, well, that was the thinking behind it. Let's solve some problems faster, because there's another 100 coming down the pike the next day. So it's working pretty well, and I'm thrilled. I'm blessed, man. I consider myself one of the most blessed guys on the earth and in the fire service, that I have I've had these opportunities to do things like this. And now I've had the pleasure of meeting our new commissioner a couple of times. And he's a pretty cool guy, man. He shows up he's on 8. He shows up on 7 with a cup of coffee, 7:30 in the morning. guys, just passing through. How's everything? What's new? What's cooking? You know.
I was going to ask you how the new big boss is doing. I had the opportunity to watch the video of his swearing in ceremony, and it sounds like it's going to be good.
Well, he did say on the record for his first staff meeting with the staff chiefs, he says, you guys are the chiefs of the department. You're the chiefs that run this department. I need you to run the department. He says, and I'll do everything I can to help you get what you need to run the department. That's what you want to hear from your fire commissioner.
That's what you want to hear from any boss.
Yeah. You know, the last commissioner wanted to be hands-on and micromanage everything, and it didn't work. So this guy, he's smart. He comes from the corporate world. He knows business, and he's right now, of course, you know, we're on a honeymoon, right? You know, everybody's on a honeymoon, and you know, people who are being approached to take a promotion, they're like kind of hedging a little bit. They trying to wait and see, you know. And you can't blame them. You know, everybody's a little bit gun shy from the last administration. But right now, it looks pretty good. He's very approachable, very regular guy, you know. And we'll see. The answer is time will tell. Time will tell.
From what I understand, he's also a buff.
A lifelong buff, probably up in the Aurnhammer, Kanterman category, you know. And he did an internship in the 80s when he was in either high school or college with the fire department. And then he owns his own security company. He has a worldwide security company that he owns. So he's big into security. I guess maybe some fire protection, a little bit, tiny bit. But big security dude. And he was on the board of directors for the FDNY Foundation, which is a nonprofit 501c3 that supports the FDNY with certain activities, some training, blah, blah, blah. So he was on their board. He was a large contributor to that. And that's kind of how his name floated toward the top, because he was a known figure with the fire department, so to speak, in the city. So the mayor tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey. So here's a guy who was a kid like us with a scanner from the time we were 15 or 14, and now he's the fire commissioner. I mean, think about that, Tommy. Think about being just a kid on your bike chasing fire trucks with a scanner, and then 35 or however many years later, you're the fire commissioner in New York City. I mean, so he walks around with this big grin on his face all day. You can't blame him. I'd be the same way. I'd be giddy stupid if it was me, you know. But there seems to be the atmosphere is lifting, so to speak. We had that wet blanket on us for 2 years, and it was terrible. So people are smiling again. You hear a little bit of laughter coming out of the floors, and he came down to fire prevention on I think it was Tuesday, and he actually presented something. One of our guys was going down in the elevator to the garage underneath the building to get a car, and came out, and the car security coordinator guy was laying there dead. My guy called for EMS, jumped on him, did CPR, saved his life. So commissioner came down, gave him an attaboy in person, then kind of apologized to everybody else, saying, I've been in commission 3 weeks and I haven't stopped down here to apologize, but keep doing what you're doing. And we know you do important work and you're all part of the family, So yeah, he's that kind of guy. You know, he's very personable, and you can talk to him, and yeah, we'll see. But right now we have high hopes. You know, we have high hopes. So and thank you for your congratulations and your wishes and all that stuff. So just turning the corner a little bit, as everybody knows who's watching this, 9/11, the 23rd anniversary was this week. I had a long emotional day, like a lot of people do, but this year I was kind of in the mix a little bit. My boss, who like I said is a 4-star chief, I asked him, what are you doing on Monday? I said, what are you doing on Wednesday? So he says, I got this, and this. I said, you want a passenger? So our day started at Engine 54, Ladder 4, Battalion 9. They're on the corner of 8th Avenue and 48th Street in Manhattan. And I didn't know that 23 years it's been there. I'd never seen it before. Okay, the firehouse is on 8th Avenue. Go around the corner on 48th. It's a side street, and that's where the theaters are. They're in the theater district. In fact, they're on their rig. It says never miss a performance, because they cover Broadway, you know. But right around the corner and across the street, there's a pocket park. There's a small park there, and there's a monument to the 15 guys that got killed out of that house 23 years ago. It's beautiful. It's very discreet. It's got benches. It's got a big block of black granite with their names engraved and a little bit of water coming out the top. And they invite all the families. There was military guys there. Must have been 125 people there. They set up a breakfast on the apparatus floor. And then after that, everybody goes around the corner to this little park. We had pipers. Really nice ceremony. Read the names of the 15 guys, a couple of speakers. We had a 4-star general who came to speak at this thing.
Wow.
He was involved with 9/11 back then. And he says, as long as I'm alive, I will be in this park every year until I can't be in this park anymore. He's like committed to being there. It was really nice, man. I didn't know that park and that monument existed. It's very discreet. And I love the discreet monuments like that. You know, it's like there's when I went to Worcester to the firehouse where the 6 guys got killed in the warehouse, they have a short wall with their pictures on it, like in front of the house they built on that site. It's discreet. It's very, very nice, very classy. So we did that, and then we walked to St. Pat's from there, and they had a 10:30 mass that went an hour. Then we walked back to the firehouse about noon, and she says, listen, 1 o'clock, there's a ceremony at headquarters at 2. At 1 o'clock, there's a luncheon with the 4 families who are going to be honored. Let's get back to headquarters, have lunch with them, and then 2 o'clock in the lobby. The 4 plaques that hang in the lobby are the 4 bosses who got killed that day that didn't belong to a firehouse, because the plaques normally hang in the firehouse. So it was Chief Gansey, Commissioner Feehan, Chief Barbara, and Chief Burns. So their bronze plaques are in headquarters lobby. And then we have a big ceremony. We have an auditorium. It was packed. Ceremony, the whole bit, speakers, and then pipes. And then we went out into the lobby, and the families of these guys, they brought flowers up to each one and put them against the wall where the plaques up. And they're really nice. And that was from 2 to 3. And that was the end of my day. But I got to headquarters at 10 to 6 that morning, and I was on my way home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, man. I was beat. But
For
those days, it's not about us, right, buddy? Just like Memorial Weekend.
The 10th anniversary, I went into the ceremony that was at the fire department memorial. Is it on Riverside?
Yep. They still have that. They still have that.
That was extremely impressive. I have yet to go to the site of the World Trade Center. I don't know whether I'm quite ready for that or not.
Well,
but
Fran and I joined the museum when they opened it, and I get 4 passes every year, and I get my membership. I pay my dues. I haven't had the guts to go yet. I got to tell you, pal, 23 years. I guess the museum was ready a few years, so let's say it's 20 years. I just haven't had the guts to go, and I admit that to anybody who asks me. It's I know it's going to be a horrendous day moving through that place.
I understand.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned the other day that kind of surprised me is that the deaths, the number of deaths from the World Trade Center illnesses now exceeds the number of line of duty deaths that occurred during the attack.
Yeah.
And boy, that just I
know.
I don't know what to say about it aside from thank God somebody's taking care of these guys.
Yes, we're at 370, Tom. There are 370 deaths post 9/11 from 9/11 illnesses, and 32 this year, 32 since the last year to this year, which we put 32 new names on. We have a separate wall for that in headquarters lobby, by the way. We have the line of duty wall, and these guys are line of duty, but there's a separate wall for post 9/11 illnesses for the memorial, and their names go up on that. And that ceremony was last week. It was actually not this past week, the week before. Was it the week before? I'm losing track of time. 9/11 was Wednesday. I think it was actually on Monday, that ceremony. We bring all those families of the guys who died since last year, and they do it. The department really does a nice job with that. So to that end, we have about 170 post 9/11 illness death, line of duty deaths that have to go on the wall in Emmitsburg. So what the fallen firefighters have done is they've sent a letter to the commissioner in New York City asking him permission to hold full vote Memorial Weekend in New York City next October, just for those 170 and any more, God forbid, that they add to that that have to go on the wall in Emmitsburg, and he said yes. So he's already given us permission. We have our dates, and now we're shopping for venues, and then training. I was saying training's going to kick in. Planning's going to kick in as soon as October, and we'll have a year like we did in Maryland. For Emmitsburg, it always took a year to get it rolling. We'll have a year to plan October to October. So we're on our way, and just like in The Godfather, they dragged me back in. Okay. They dragged me back in. I was out. I was done in May, but this is for the home team, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I was honored by Victor and Gary. They approached me and said, hey, we'd like to reactivate you for the New York City Memorial Weekend. So we'll keep you folks who watch the show and listen, and it'll be on a lot of media, but we'll keep you posted on the details. It'll be open to the public, but it'll just be in New York City instead of in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And then the names
I always have fond memories of Joe Minogue when he was doing the liaison thing with FDNY and the foundation. Who took Joe's place that's going to fill that role?
We were very lucky. They approached Tommy Richardson, the recently former chief of department. And he said, yes, he's a great guy. He's a very personable guy. A lot of fun, smart. And let me tell you, when he comes to headquarters, they unraveled the red carpet for him again. He was a very beloved guy in the job. So he's got a parking space, the whole bit, so he's got his ID card to get in. But we did have a meeting during the transition between commissioners. We met with the chief of department, with Chief Esposito, the acting chief, and with the deputy commissioner for special events and press, and our family assistance unit, which helps our families with everything. And we met with them and laid the concept out to them, and they all said, this sounds great. And then we had to get permission from the commissioner, which we just did about a week ago. So, we got everybody. We're starting to make up a roster from NFFF and FDNY, who's going to work what, and we'll probably have our first planning meeting. I'd like to shoot for October so we can get everybody in the room at the same time. We don't have to get together personally 100 times like we do for the other thing in Maryland, because most of the gang's from Maryland, right? But the first one, I told Vic that I want to get everybody in the same room if we can, so we can marry people. We got to get Honor Guard Commander together with the ceremonial unit in New York City and the pipes and drums major, put them together. And Matt's going to do the escort work and probably most of the ceremony. Him and his guys, they kind of run the ceremony too. Physically, they're out on the floor and they're moving the families and they're moving up the flag presenters and all that shit. So a lot of work to do, but that's what we're planning now. So we'll keep everybody out there in fire engineering land posted on all of that. Want to switch gears to OSHA? Talk about something really fun.
I was thrilled that Billy G was able to join us and kind of get his perspective of what's going on. And I'll be the first one to tell you that, they started talking about some of this stuff. It may not have received top billing on some of the fire media sites, but I think as we get closer to fruition with this thing, that it's something we're really going to have to pay attention to. Now, I need you to follow my wacky logic through what I was thinking about today. And as you and I were conversing right before the show, the NIOSH line of duty death report came out for the firefighter fatality in Leonardtown, Maryland, in St. Mary's County, Maryland, where one of the firefighters fell into a basement and succumbed to his injuries there. I kind of picked through the NIOSH report, and the reason I wanted to do that was the kind of the tie-in between what's cited in the NIOSH report and what needs to be looked at. Very good, thank you, sir. And what needs to be looked at from the OSHA standpoint of the emergency response standard. Now, the NIOSH report actually references NFPA 1550, which I looked, and that is not part of the new OSHA standard. But NFPA 1700 is part of the upcoming OSHA standard. So how does that work? Since now that you got a standard from NFPA 1700 that a lot of jurisdictions probably don't reference by local ordinance or county law or whatever they use to adopt the standards that are out there. And even though they may not have adopted, it may still be applicable because now it's part of the OSHA standard.
Yeah, Tom, just spell out what 1700 is so everybody listening understands that.
Sorry,
Okay.
it's 1700 is the guide for structural firefighting.
Okay.
If you're not familiar with it, again, you should look at those NFPA standards that are now going to be part of the OSHA standard and familiarize yourself and see where that puts you and what you've got now and what you need to change over to. But my questions come in is, what happens to that? Since maybe 1700 isn't adopted by local ordinance, but now you've got to follow it because it's part of the OSHA standard. And what happens if you don't? Does that open the door for OSHA enforcement? Does it open the door for OSHA to issue citations? Does it open the door for penalty payments through the federal government? And I don't know whether any of those questions have been answered yet as to what's going to happen if you don't comply and you have a line of duty death. How's that all going to interact? And I don't know if I've got good answers, but I know good people. And I'm hoping to get kind of a better grip on this. I noticed that there's an informal public hearing on the new OSHA standard that's going to occur on November 12th of 2024. And you can link into that off of OSHA.gov's website. And I'm going to tune in just because I'm curious. Yeah, I want to see where this thing's going.
Yeah, I'm looking down. I got the Federal Register here. I got two different Federal Registers. And if you guys have trouble sleeping, download the Federal Register and read it because it's great. Did they post that in the Federal Register, Tom? That hearing?
No, it's actually on the OSHA website under the emergency response standard.
Actually, you know what? I got. Hang on a second. I downloaded the proposed rule. Okay, emergency response standard. Talks a little bit about the agency, the action, the summary, and then it has dates, important dates. The hearing will be held virtually and will begin November 12th, 2024, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It's right here in the register. So if you guys are interested, there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. And then it has a link. So, but I think your thinking is worthy of discussion because taking a look at recent or current line of duties, and we can go back. Unfortunately, we can go back and look at a lot of them, and see if this OSHA thing will perhaps make a difference in the future of firefighting in the United States.
This latest line of duty report from NIOSH. I didn't write down a lot of what the contributing factors and the line of duty deaths were, but this one was a lot more specific than some of the other ones that I considered to be kind of, and I hate to use the word generic, but it's almost like cookie cutter of you can write the same report for every line of duty death. This one into a lot more specific of there were issues with situational awareness, which I think that was the first time I've heard that mentioned in a line of duty death report, and actually go in and talk about what you should be doing. It talked about training for command staff. So have you got it in front of you, Ron?
Yeah, I do. There's a ton of stuff here. You're talking about the NIOSH report?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in general, or in just broad brush, ineffective risk-benefit analysis and size up, ineffective use of strategy and tactics, ineffective professional development. So that's ineffective professional development is part and parcel to the OSHA when they talk about officer training and all that kind of stuff. Lack of ongoing crew integrity. Lack of information shared from 911 call to the responding unit. The recommendations: fire department should develop and implement a professional development plan to ensure all personnel receive technical and academic competencies relative to the roles they're expected to perform on emergency scenes. That's in here. It's in the write-up, in the register right here, kids. It's right there. Okay, that's what they're talking about. And here, the NIOSH report talks about professional development and getting up. And we've been talking about this a long time. This is not new.
Yeah.
No. 20 years ago at FDIC, we were starting to talk about the guy in the right front seat or the gal in the right front seat, the officer in the right front seat, the person, whoever, whatever you want to talk. The person in the right front seat making all the snap decisions as soon as they pull up the first 5 minutes, all of that stuff. We have to start concentrating on those line officers who make those snap decisions in the beginning, okay, to perhaps determine what's going to come next. And that's what OSHA is talking about. And that's what they're talking about here in this NIOSH report. The second big recommendation: incident commanders and company officers ensure that crew integrity is maintained, visual, direct, or verbal, when operating in an IDLH atmosphere. And that's not new. That's not new.
And I'll be the first one to tell you that fire grant accountability can be like herding cats someday.
No doubt.
But you gotta do it.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion on, we're tracking all these people and we had the tags and all this other stuff, but you got to do something. Okay, to sit back and say the system doesn't work, we don't care, we don't give it. You can't do that. You got to find ways, creative ways to try to track where the people are and how they're moving through the building and where they're assigned and all that stuff. It's a pain. Is it a pain? Yeah, it could be. And in a lot of regions of the country, it's hard to have all those chiefs on a scene. We always say in New York, we bring enough people to scare the fire away. We don't need water sometimes. So yeah, we got a half a dozen or 8 battalion chiefs to a second or third alarm. We have a safety officer. We have an accountability guy. We got 2 accountabilities. We got 3 safety officers. We have a safety command. There's a safety battalion on 24 hours a day. So we have that luxury. But that's, you got to, if you're not doing it, you got to sit down with your mutual aid partners and say, hey, wait a minute. If we call more than 3 or 4 towns, somebody's got a chief officer has to come in and take command of safety and accountability. And there's a way to do it. There's always a way to do it. Billy talked about that these chiefs in this region, they all hated each other, but they came to the table and they decided they're going to make a mutual aid system and they're going to help each other out no matter what, in the interest of Mrs. Smith and all that. That's what we got to do. We got to do it, because if we don't do it, somebody's going to come along and write a 250-page thing in the register and say, oh, you'll do it now. And then you'll all be pissed off saying, oh, they're telling us what to do. Well, look what happened to Hazmat. It was coming down the pike. Warren Isman said, it's coming. He wrote a book. And then all the fire chiefs in the country went, we're not doing chemical response. Get the hell out of here. Yeah, what are we doing now? Everybody's got a hazmat team, right? Got hazmaniacs running around the whole firehouse and the whole bit, right?
I can remember when I went through my blue card training, and we got talking about forms, and either forms for building your incident command system or doing your incident action plan or accountability, and they basically kind of stressed the the basic form. There it is. It's
like
a blank piece of paper.
I like
Write it down.
I got one just like it. Check it out. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the old pad and paper. You know, Brunacini said 25 years ago. He says, you don't need a command bus. He says, a beach chair, an umbrella, and a clipboard. He said, you're good. You know, but keep it simple, right? So I don't know. I don't think it's as bad as everybody's kind of making it out to be. Some of the volunteer organizations will fight with you, and some of the career organizations as well. But there's nothing in here that's insurmountable. There's nothing here that we can't do. And there's nothing in here that we can't take a little bit more time and say, you know, like Billy said, he said, you know, if you say to OSHA, we can't do this in 4 years, but we could do it in 5, they're going to say, okay, just show us some progress. You know, you got to show us a little bit something, you know. So I think it's the right path. It's probably long overdue. Yeah, the Part L, the fire brigade 156 standard, it's as old as OSHA. I think, well, OSHA was born, what, 1970?
Yeah, I think so.
70.
And I think the respiratory protection standard was, I think, put together in 1980.
Yeah. So the fire brigade standards from 1970. It was time, and I think, frankly, the brothers and sisters at OSHA, I think they did a hell of a job on this thing. But if you really take a good look at this emergency response standard, man, this had to take years to write, years, and I think it did. And it
had all the major players
right
putting that thing together. International Association of Fire Chiefs, International Association of Firefighters, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, a lot of the organizations that we live with, National Volunteer Fire Council, all had their fingers in the pie as to what we're looking at right now.
Right.
Could it use other refinement? Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be picture perfect. Show me the last time we had something that was picture perfect.
Yeah.
But instead of sitting back and bitching about it, get involved in the process.
Yeah.
The fact that they're going to have a public hearing on this, even though it's virtual, if you got something to say, damn it, get on there and say it.
Absolutely. And yeah, OSHA didn't operate in a vacuum with this. They didn't. They invited the fire service to the table, and everybody had representation. So I you know, if you folks out there in the fire engineering video land have a problem with it, and whatever category you're in, IAFF brother or NVFC volunteer, you got to contact your people who were at these meetings and say, what the hell were you talking about? But frankly, if you calm down and read it slow, and you say, you know what? All right, this kind of makes sense. This, you know, and we'll get through it, and I think we'll get through it. So keep your guns holstered. That's what I always say. Keep your guns holstered, right? Don't draw really fast. But I think for the record, Tom, you know, you brought up the firefighter who was killed. His name was Bryce Trosbach from Patuxent River Naval Air Station. I guess they went out on mutual aid in June of 23.
He was also a volunteer member of the department where the fire occurred, even though he was on duty at the military fire department that night.
Didn't want to go past that without at least mentioning his name, because we always say we won't forget, so we didn't want to forget. But yeah, and the NIOSH report, you know, they're not lengthy, you know, they're not volumes and volumes, and the same stuff comes up in the report. You know, this I cut and pasted on a piece of paper so I can look at it, but it's the same. Tommy, we read this list, it's the same list. The only thing was communications and radios. I guess the radios were working that day, but everything else is the same.
It's always been my contention, and when I talk to people about what to do with the NIOSH reports, you know, I'm a big fan of coffee table training, and even just to go over the recommendations and the executive summary of each NIOSH report that comes out. It's good to remind ourselves of what we're doing with some of that stuff. But I'm also reminded of Edison's definition of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. we gotta embrace this stuff. And I know I talk about it when we do the list of line of duty deaths at the end of every show. Of you got to heed the lessons that are learned there. Otherwise, their deaths are in vain. They've provided examples for us to learn from, and we have got to. It is incumbent upon us to make sure the word gets passed out and we learn the lessons.
Well said, my friend. You feel good now? You purge a little bit.
Yeah.
Purge a little bit. You know, you got to get it out. I get that, man. You got to. Because guys like us that have been around longer than 20 minutes, we've been reading the same shit for 50 years. We're reading the same stuff over and over again. You know, and you got to take action to make changes. You just do. You just do. So, all right. The final report on the Grenfell high-rise fire from the UK is out. And to no surprise, 72 people lost their lives in that building. And to no surprise, the UK government, all fingers are pointing to the UK government on this. We talked about the book that was written. It's on the shelf here called Show Me the Bodies, How We Let Grenfell Happen. If you haven't read that, I strongly recommend it, you know, not just you, Tom, but to our audience. And everything in that book pointed to the government. And throughout the whole investigation since 2017, everybody's doing this. They're playing a blame game, but it all comes back to the UK government. They cut back on their regulatory. They cut back on their code. And who got left holding the bag? The UK brigade. That's what it appears, that the UK fire brigade, okay, kind of everybody's pointing at them. You're the fire department, you know, and there's hundreds of little issues here with the contractors, with the code, with what they let them put on the building, that combustible cladding on the outside of the building, the vinyl windows, and all of that stuff. But everything in this final, and it's huge. The final report's big. It's like, I don't know, 1,500 pages or something. There are executive summaries around, but whether you're in a high-rise, if you're in a high-rise district somewhere in the country, you got to at least read the book, Show Me the Bodies. But take a glance at this report and see what they put in there about how things happened through regulatory or lack thereof. You
know, I was looking at the link to an article that Billy G had up on Secret List a couple months ago, and it had to do with the London Fire Brigade and kind of their take on what was going on. And the brigade union talked about deregulation and failings at the Tower fire. And one of the things I read that I'd never heard of before is stay put guidance. And I'm assuming that has to do with people not being able to evacuate the structure because the fire brigade had told them to hang out there for a while. The London Fire Commissioner, Andy Rowe, acknowledged that the residents of the tower were told to stay put for too long during that incident. But the brigade union was looking at things such as institutional failing in the fire safety policies, and warnings about cladding fires were completely ignored. The brigade really kind of criticized that deregulation and the failings there, and are really looking to make some changes so that doesn't occur again in the future. Ron, you and I had the pleasure of having, and I'm at a loss at his name now, from Clark County, was talking about the cladding fires that they had suffered there in Las Vegas and some of the issues that they're up against.
How could you forget the guy's name from Clark County? His name is Clark. Clark, remember?
Yes.
Clark Lamping is his last name. Clark Lamping. He's a captain with Clark County, Nevada. We talked about that because they had a similar fire at the Monte Carlo.
Mm-hmm.
But that was an EFIS system, an external facade. that's made to keep the water out and all that stuff. It was a similar kind of thing. But getting back to Grenfell, they had, that was their SOP. UK's SOP for a high-rise fire is people stay where you are. Even as they were calling from their apartments or their flats, they call them, from their flats, when they call the dispatcher, I don't think they have 911. I think they have, I think it's actually 119 if I'm not mistaken. But as they're calling it the emergency number, they're telling them stay in your apartment. And the problem is the fire came up the outside, melted the vinyl windows, and the windows fell in, and the fire came into the apartment. It was killing people. And they said, "Hey, the fire's in here already. What do you want us to do?" But the thing is, nobody at the fire ground, the commanders, didn't make that adjustment at all. They were going, that was their rules. They stayed with it. They didn't call an audible like they do on a football field. They didn't call an audible. The commander in charge didn't say, "Wait a minute, we can't do this thing. We can't do this what we call shelter in place. We can't do shelter in place right now because of whatever." So, but nobody called the audible. Nobody said, "Hey, wait a minute, time out. Get these people out of the building. If you can get to the stairwell, the one stairwell, go ahead." But nobody changed that policy. And when they called on the phone, they told them, "Stay where you are. The fire department's on the scene. We'll come and get you." So there's a lot of lessons to be learned here for everybody, for the entire fire service worldwide, really. Grenfell, hopefully, again, like you just said, Tommy, we can heed the lessons from what happened there, and hopefully the UK themselves, the guy that wrote the book, he was a reporter and he did a hell of a job researching, and he went to all the hearings. He sat in all the hearings for the last 5 years. And he said they're still putting up buildings with one stairwell in the UK. After all of this, they're still putting up one stairwell buildings. And now everybody else is looking at that saying, "Oh, that ain't a bad idea. Maybe we should do that in New York City." They're talking about it in New York City. One stairwell high rises. That's another issue. That's another issue that's going to come to my desk, I'm thinking.
And I always considered the UK to be way ahead of us when it comes to the use of fixed fire protection systems compared to what we've been doing for years with sprinklers and all the other accoutrements that come with that.
Well, I think the other thing worth noting is this was public housing. This was like what we have in New York City. We have something called NIOSH, the New York City Housing Authority. I think something like 10 or 12% of the entire population of New York City is housed in NIOSH housing. I mean, we have, I think, what is it? I forgot what the number is. It's like 55,000 apartments or something. It's some crazy number. But this was public housing, Grenfell. So it's whatever the government decided that they would put into that building, not sprinklers, not fire. Or there was fire alarm. I don't know if it went off. I don't remember if it went off or not. But with all of that, I believe there was a standpipe system in there. But at the end of the day, everything points to the government. So I urge the brothers and sisters that listen to the show, take a look at this book. Show me the bodies. It'll blow your mind as you read the chapters. You could say, "I can't believe they allowed that," or "I can't believe they didn't approve this or they approved that." And everybody's pointing, that we tested this stuff. It works. It doesn't work. It's flammable. It's not flammable. There was a million problems. So I get the book to show you. Hold on. We always got to do the book club, right?
I got a couple for later.
Okay.
Show me the box.
We've shown this one on the show before, but I want to show it again for our new Peter Apps is the name of the guy. I wonder if there's an app for apps. That could be. Okay. So that's kind of that. So yeah, what can I tell you, man?
Also, just on a quick note on something you and I had discussed earlier, the vehicle explosion issue that has been occurring probably with more regularity than I ever remember seeing it. The one that occurred recently in Los Angeles, big bucket loader tire blew, which, I mean, that's an explosion. And it sent stuff flying. There's been other ones in Los Angeles that have occurred with pieces of construction equipment. There was one, I can't remember whether it was an LNG fire run or it was an alternative fuel, where I think the tank blew on that one. And then just recently in Georgia, there was a tractor trailer fire in which an explosion occurred when the battalion chief went up to open a door on the vehicle.
Did you see the video?
No, I haven't.
All right, I have it. I'll try to text it to you. I have it on my phone. Allegedly, this tractor trailer in Georgia, allegedly, it was full of frozen poultry, frozen chickens or something coming from a chicken. I've never seen any dead animals burn like that. I don't know what else was in that trailer, man. I'm waiting on the edge of my seat to see what the investigation reveals, what was in that truck, because after the explosion, I think the chief took the brunt of as he got to the door, it exploded. So I think that steel door in the back is what killed him. It looks that way anyway. And the guy taking the video with his phone says, "Oh my God, that fireman he's probably dead." Sure enough, the chief was laying there. But the truck, I mean, we're talking rocking and rolling. It looks like an oil tank on fire. I mean, you can see the column of smoke coming out of that thing. It's like, that can't be frozen chickens, man. It just can't be. Now, somebody said, I won't tell you who, but somebody said to me when he looked at it, this guy's a fireman and he also works for Underwriter Laboratories, UL. Now, UL is just getting involved with looking at new refrigerants, and they're bringing back flammable refrigerants. They went away for a long time, flammable refrigerants, and they're coming back because the current refrigerants, I guess, they're either bad for the ozone layer, it's not green enough, whatever. So we're also taking a look at that. Really, we have our high-rise buildings have 4 and 5 ton air conditioning units. They're talking about flammable refrigerants in those units in our buildings. So we're very concerned. Okay. But he said he wondered if that refrigerated tractor trailer, keeping that meat cold, had flammable refrigerant in that unit, and so I'm waiting with bated breath, as this guy is, to see what the investigation shows, because Tommy, when you see that footage, you're going to say that can't be chickens, man, or they're the fattiest chickens, and they were full of alcohol before they got slaughtered, because it's wicked. It's wicked. The explosion and the ensuing fire afterwards. It looks like there's petroleum on it. Looks like hydrocarbon fire.
Yeah, there was just another incident also in California where just a regular vehicle exploded on them while they were doing it. And, I'm kind of in the same boat you are, Ron. I want to see exactly what else was going on there to make that a contributing factor in an explosion.
Yeah.
I used to, laugh when my wife and I would be watching TV and, a vehicle crash on television, you're going to have a fire. And I'm like, no, they don't ever catch on fire from accidents. Well, guess what? I'm here to eat those words.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be occurring more often than not.
Yeah. And, getting back to where Andrew Pontius got killed in LA County, that we kind of changed tactics when the 5 mile an hour bumpers were born, and they said that those shocks that kind of hold them together, in a car fire, they can blow off. And I've seen a front bumper go flying down the highway. I guess you probably have too. So then we went to that corner of the car, fight the fire from the corner. So if the bumper takes off, it'll go past us. But now you almost got to stay on the corner again, because that perhaps that truck tire, I'm thinking they were standing right in front of it, putting it out. If they were in that corner, maybe it might have made a difference. We don't know where the shrapnel went. We don't know where the tire went. Those tires, they're big. And it said that those hunks of rubber turned into shrapnel and killed this guy, man. So maybe that corner, we're operating off the corner, is the best place for all time. I don't know. But last thing they expected. Here's the part that gets me, Tom. In further reading about that tire explosion in LA, okay, the first tire exploded on that truck 4 minutes before the fire department got there, and the people in the quarry crapped themselves when it happened, and they didn't tell anybody. The fire department rolled in. Nobody went over to them and said, hey, that huge tire just exploded on the right side of the truck. Be careful, whatever. They didn't say a word. They watched these guys come in and stand within, I don't know how many feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, and put a line on there. And then the tire took off and killed this guy, So sometimes, we talk about relying on the people in a facility like that to give us good intel, whether it's a chemical plant, whether it's an industrial facility, a military base, whatever. And here these people stood there, they didn't say a word, and the first tire blew up 4 or 5 minutes before they got there. So I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to come out of this one, man. I don't know if keeping that corner angle on any vehicle fire is going to be prudent still. Perhaps. I don't know. But again, we mentioned Andrew Pontius because we say we're not going to forget, and we won't. That there's a name we repeat it here. You got anything else? I got one or two other little things. Little things.
Go ahead. Then I got some books I wanted to talk about.
The books. Okay, so first of all, happy birthday to Captain Sam Siebert, retired from San Jose, California, 105 years old. I want to be him when I grow up. Absolutely. Guys, just celebrate 105th birthday. He's a retired captain of the San Jose. Happy birthday, Cap. You're the man. I just wanted to say that. And I want to talk about a personal experience I had. I'm going to bring the camera back in again. I posted an article on fire engineering, and it was on. I called it Firefighting in 2024 on current stuff, and it was pulled in about 3 or 4 days. They took it down. And I then I had a nice meeting with Dave and Mike Champo. Mike's doing a lot of editing type work now in his retirement from FDNY. Mike's retired. And it turns out when it got posted, one of the UL guys or one of the NIST guys or both, they read it and said, not that it wasn't accurate, but there's new stuff down the pike. We've done more research. This compared to what we're doing, this looks a little bit old, blah, blah, blah. So I met with Dave and Mike. We talked about it. Of course, what did they do to me, Tom? They tied me in knots. I was in UL and NIST for the next 4 or 5 days, reading everything and getting my hands on certain little things. Okay. The good news was they didn't say I was wrong. They just say I wasn't as current. Okay. And you know what? I'm a big boy. October 7th, I'll be doing this 50 years. That's fine. They took the article down. I redid it. Mike just looked at it again, and we're going to repost very shortly. Okay. The guys from NIST and or UL they called Dave on the phone and said, this isn't, it's not what we're talking about now. Our research isn't showing this. You may want to pull it and adjust. Okay. But one guy, he wrote the nastiest personal attack note to Dave Rhodes on my article. And like I said, I'm a big boy. I got big shoulders. But it was the guy hit all the unnecessary, unprofessional, uncalled for. What are you doing? I've seen stuff like this before, in fire engineering. And one time, a couple of times I called Bobby. Before him, I called Bill Manning. I said, I just read this thing. This is not accurate. And I said, you want me to talk to the guy? I'll be glad to call him. This guy who attacked me personally and told Dave what a moron I was. Take my email, pick up the phone. Hey, Ron, this is Charlie from Minnesota. I don't know who it is. They wouldn't tell me who it is. And your stuff is all wet, and I would have sat and listened to the guy and said, you know what? I missed that. I didn't read that last UL FSRI report. I didn't read the last this thing. You're right. So that was another thing where when I first happened, I said, I'm going to keep my gun holstered because you can get out of your shorts when you see something like that. And of course, Dave was smart enough not to post this guy's note like on letters to the editor or something, So we had a nice conversation. I went in, I researched all my stuff again. It's all fixed. We're going to put it back. Why am I telling this story? I'm making a plea. I'm pleading to the men and women of the fire service of this country and anybody else is willing to listen. If you read something anywhere and it doesn't look right, be professional, be nice. Brunacini used to say, be nice. Be nice. Contact the author and say, I don't agree with what you're saying. What are you talking about? Or did you miss that report from this? Evidently, I missed the thing from UL. You know, it was a couple of things. And then we just made an adjustment, and they're going to put the article back up, you know. And you know what? Bobby talked about this on the stage many, many times, you know, about the keyboard cowards. That's what I call them, keyboard cowards. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. And nobody's perfect. Yeah, I'm doing it 50 years. Does that mean I know every goddamn thing on the world? No. So I urge you, when you read something you don't like, or it's like the science isn't there, keep your gun holstered. I kept mine holstered because I was going to I could have got angry. I didn't. I reached out for Dave. We had a nice conversation. Mike Champo got on. We talked about this. They explained everything that the UL and this guys had said. I said, you know what? I missed it, guys, and I apologized. And we put it back together, Humpty Dumpty. We glued it all back together, and I'm going to send it in this week, and hopefully they'll post it. But let's treat each other with some kindness and respect. There was no need for that guy to go off. I don't know who it is. I must have stepped on this guy's foot 30 years ago or something or whatever. But let's treat each other with a little more kindness, because I never did that to anybody in my life, in my entire career. I've never.
Next time, I promise I'll contact you directly.
Oh, you rat bastard. So let's treat each other better than I got treated, because I've never done anything like that to anybody for any reason. You know, I've disagreed. We all do that. We disagree, but you know, let's be people, and we're all in this, brothers and sisters. You know, so I just wanted to get that out a little bit, and like I said, nobody's perfect, and I made my corrections. So what else you got, pal?
Books, buddy. I got books.
You got books. All right. I love the book shtick. What do you got? 150 IAFC. Okay. So what's in it?
It's basically a look at history of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, who celebrated their 150th anniversary actually last year. But the books have just come out. It's kind of like a high school yearbook format. Give you a shot of the inside.
So who do they profile, like all the past presidents and that kind of stuff?
If you're a member of the organization, you send them a picture, it gets in there.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So thankfully, I'm still a life member of the IAFC.
Look at you.
And I got a picture.
All right.
So I got a phone call. Well, actually, it was an email from the deputy fire chief over here at San Juan County, New Mexico, who's in the process of writing his first trade journal article, putting together one from the wildland perspective of some of the evaluations we go through and how that's doing. And I was honored that John sent me a copy to look at and made some edits too. And then it made me think of my first Fire Service Journal article, which was in NFPA's Fire Command magazine.
I remember Fire Command.
When Clinton Smoke was the editor-in-chief over there.
I went to college with Clint Smoke.
Really?
Clint Smoke was a Coast Guard commander out of the Port of New York. And in the 70s, when I was going to John Jay as a kid, he was in my class. He was taking fire science classes. I know Clinton Smoke a long time. Terrific.
Cool.
Great guy.
He did me well. But the whole format and outline of that article I wrote was based on an article on how to write an article by Ronnie Coleman. So nice. I thought probably the right thing to do for John is to send him that same article that Coleman put together on how to write an article. Cool. I'll be goddamned if I can find that.
It was probably in Firehouse, I'm thinking, because that was his gig, right? Didn't he write for Firehouse?
Fire Chief.
Oh, Fire Chief magazine, okay. Which is also
the Fire Chief's Corner. But I found this in the collection.
Wow.
It was 20 years of the Chief's clipboard from Fire Chief magazine, and this is all stuff that Ronnie Coleman had put together. Ronnie, I'm proud to say, was one of my many mentors that I had, and I think, Ron, I told you the the story. I was looking for Lloyd Lehman's book,
Right.
because I wanted to take some stuff out of it for another article I was doing, and I couldn't find one. They're out of print. I think you were with us in Telluride, Colorado, for the Colorado conference when Ronnie was there.
Yep.
And I mentioned to him that I'm just having a hell of a time trying to find this book. A week after I got home, that book was in the mail.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
That's the way he was.
Yep. I'm not surprised.
The last one I've got was a book that was published in 1955, and it's kind of a historical perspective.
Firefighting Moe's. Okay.
So this was published by a guy who wrote stories. Find the right deal here. He wrote stories about Paul Bunyan, John Henry, Cowboy Jamboree, Pecos Bill, those kinds of people. But he wrote this.
Firefighting Moe's.
So if you can read it, it talks about him being the world's greatest firefighter. And he was a member of the New York City Volunteer Fire Department and was on Lady Washington, Engine Company 40. And a machine of great excellence, as it speaks of, also known as the White Ghost. This I found this. It was in my grandfather's collection.
Wow.
And I was looking for something else, and I came across this. But I got to crack it open and read it, because I think it contains great tales of the volunteer fire department of old New York.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I saw a book laying on a desk of one of the bosses recently, and it was about the New York Fire Patrol.
I've got it.
Oh, you got that one? I just got it. No, it came yesterday or today. I got it from Amazon, and I just got it. So I'm going to look through it. I thumbed through it, and I saw my buddy. He was the chief of the patrol, Frank Dempsey. He was chief of patrol in the 70s and 80s. We also went to college together. I had a crazy college group, man. A lot of guys were there. Patty Brown and Jimmy Coyle and a whole bunch of guys. But Frank Dempsey was in that gang too. So I worked early for the city in the 80s. A couple of guys from patrol. Patty Brown was a patrolman. Captain Brown.
Really?
Yeah, 9/11. He came out of patrol. And for the record, a patrolman was killed at the Trade Center on 9/11. A kid named, give me a second, Keith Romer. Keith Romer was a fire patrolman, got killed at the Trade Center. So they've been around. They're gone now. The patrols. Yeah, they've been disbanded. For those of you who never heard of the Fire Patrol in New York, they were owned, run, and paid for by the New York Board of Fire underwriters, by the insurance conglomerates, to go to commercial buildings, do salvage work. While the firefighters are fighting, they're putting tops on merchandise to try to save the merchandise and to make sure that the insurance claim kind of matched what actually happened, keeping everybody honest, so to speak. But they had 3 firehouses. They were the only guys in New York City that wore red helmets. Everybody, city wears black or white. They actually wore red helmets. And the patrol was around for, I think, 140 or 150 years. It was like, I think, 1839, I'm thinking, until about 2000 something. Tommy's putting his hand up. But they responded to all commercial fires, all commercial buildings, to do that salvage and assist the firefighters. They stretched lines. I think 11, 12, maybe 14 patrolmen were killed in a line of duty over the years. And they hadn't had one in a very long time until 9/11 when Keith Romer got killed. Let me see.
This one you were looking at?
No, I'm down in my office, but it has a picture of them on a rig. And it's that there's a series of books all over the country, and it's about like the local community. They write.
Yeah.
It's one of those. I forget what it's called, but it's got 5 or 6 guys on a rig, and they're wearing their helmets, and it's one of those community books. I forget what they're called, but you go to any town or city in the country, and you go into a bookstore, and they got them on a rack, and they're usually a brown and black cover, and it's kind of, most of them are pamphlet size. They're not really too thick. It talks about the local town or That's the one. There you go. That's the one, buddy. You can always count on you to back me up. He's always got my back. That's the book. So I just got it. I'm going to look through it. But the patrol, they had a long lineage for, I think, I'm going to say early 1800s through probably the early 00s. They were around a very long time. A lot of patrolmen went over to become firefighters in New York City. That Patrol 3 was in Brooklyn, and Patrols 1 and 2 was in Manhattan, and they covered the 5 boroughs. But they responded. They were on the dispatcher's ticket, and if it was a commercial building, they got knocked out with the units. And again, they did a lot back in the day, especially. They did a lot of firefighting as well. They got in there and they did some firefighting. So that's it on the patrol. What other book did I get? I got one more book in the mail the other day. The patrol was one. I can't think of the other one, but it's way upstairs, 2 flights up, so can't get it now. But we'll get you on the next one. So the next time we get together on the Backstep, Tom, I will have hit my 50-year mark in the fire service. I went to my first fire when I was 18 in October of 1974. It was a car fire, by the way, and I'm looking forward to hitting that milestone, and I'm just humbled and proud.
You're 2 years ahead of me.
Yeah. Okay.
Came on in February of '76.
Yep. That's when I became a New York City auxiliary firefighter, assigned to 257 in Brooklyn, where I lived in Canarsie, and those guys taught me the craft. I give them the credit. 5 years I rode with them. We did a lot of fire duty, not in Canarsie, but going the other way into East New York and Brownsville back in the 70s. It was hopping. And I was going in 2 nights a week for 5 years, and I caught a fire every single time. Every single time I went in. It was real busy back then in the 70s. So while I wasn't necessarily part and parcel to the war years, I got to at least witness it and do a little bit of work during that time. It was an interesting time. But the guys in that firehouse, they were great. They took me in and come on, kid, we'll show you the ropes. It was kind of neat. So 50 years later.
It reminds me because, I joined my local volunteer fire department following the other 4 generations of Aurnhammers that did that. But all the fire I saw and where I learned a lot was in Newark. And 2 guys that Captain Billy Heilman, God rest his soul, Battalion Chief Jimmy Smith, Battalion Chief Harry Carter. Those were the guys that I kind of learned the trade from, and where I'd be.
Yeah. And I still remember those guys. I remember their names. I remember what they look like. It's amazing. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I remember. I can go through almost the whole roster of the engine. It was an engine and a truck. 170 was in the house with them, and I remember the officers and 90% of those guys, their names, I could picture their faces and all that stuff. But as a side note, the second or third year I was there, so say around 77, a young probie walked in the house, and his name was John O'Connell, okay, who eventually went into rescue and rode for fire engineering for many years and took the nickname Johnny Collapse. I think, what's his name? Diane called him Johnny Collapse. And John, he ended up, I met him when he was a kid. He was a probie, and he ended up with a storied career himself as a rescue guy and a collapse guy and all that stuff. So you never know. And I went to college with Patty Brown. He was captain of Rescue 1. Patty orchestrated the rope rescue in Times Square. He was on the roof of the building orchestrating the rescue back in, I guess, was that the 80s? And that was the famous Times Square rope rescue. And then he was pulled out of rescue, went to Ladder Company 3 in Manhattan, and died as the captain of 3 on 9/11. So, a lot of water under the bridge, man. Let me just show you something real quick. While the fire patrol wore red, we wore yellow. That's my
very nice.
Yeah,
because the auxiliary in Newark, we wore red.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. So while I've had a litany of helmets through my career, I pulled all the front pieces off, and They're all kind of standing up like on my shelf over here. But that one, I left that one intact as a, left the front piece on it with the helmet and everything. I'm leaving. I'm not taking that one apart. That one stays the way it is. There's that helmet's so old. It's leather, but there's no OSHA dome in there.
No,
there's no steel.
The one I wore right up until I retired, I bought in 1977 from the Carnes factory in New Jersey.
Yep.
And it was back when they custom fit the helmets.
Yeah, this was custom fit. You can see all the way in there. There's no OSHA dome. You can see the leather. You can see the leather in there. Yeah, this was custom fit. You had to put the thing on your head with the springs, remember?
I got to tell you the story about that. You are familiar with the Tom Aurnhammer nickname.
Yes.
Buffalo Head.
Yes, Buffalo Head. Yes, sir.
So I go into Carnes with another guy from Milburn, and we're going to buy the custom fit helmets. And they put the metal derby on you, and they slid a piece of paper in there to punch the shape of your head out, and that's what they use as a pattern to build the helmet. So I got the metal derby on, and the guy's like, "Can you wait just a second?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's going out in the factory and dragging guys into the showroom going, "Look at the size of this guy's head." But if you look at the rear brim of my helmet, it's
must be that big.
Yeah.
Must be that big. Looks like a hard hat, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's probably the most comfortable helmet I've ever owned.
Yeah, that yellow one. They put the thing. I went to the FDNY quartermaster, and they had this thing. It was loaded with springs, and you slipped it over your head, right? And then when you took it off, that's told them exactly what the size was, and then they sent the order in. So, but back then, that helmet in 1974, that helmet cost $165. I thought I was going to pass out when the guy told me that. But I saved my money. Man. I was working part-time jobs. I was pumping gas. I was a kid. Pumping gas. And I worked in a bakery. I saved up. I bought that helmet. It was the proudest day of my life when I bought that helmet, man. Let me tell you. It's very cool. Very cool.
I think mine cost me $55.
Wow.
And it's probably, and I don't know why it was as expensive as that. But my daughter just bought a new leather, and it was $1,500.
How? $1,500 for a leather helmet?
Yes.
Last I heard, there was 6 and change, and that was in the last couple of years.
They have gone up quite a bit.
$1,500. How many cows do they have to kill to get one helmet now? Jesus. Holy shit. All right, Tom, what do you think, kid? We got about an hour and 20 here today, so you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I got the last time Ron and I recorded was back on August 11th. And since then, unfortunately, we've had 6 line of duty deaths. On August 13th, Thomas Berry III from Georgetown, Delaware, was operating at a vehicle accident when a power pole came down and he was electrocuted. August 15th, Matthew Ferrand from New Bedford, Massachusetts, passed away from an unknown medical at the station. August 16th, Brian Peak from Edders, Pennsylvania, was struck by an auto while operating at an accident scene. August 23rd, William Tetrich from Tucson, Arizona, rural metro fire, passed away from a heat-related incident at the fire academy. September 4th, Christopher Eddy from Greensboro, Georgia, was killed in an explosion at the tractor-trailer fire that Ron and I had spoke of earlier. And also on September 4th, Darrell Helton from Belfry, Kentucky, passed away from an unknown medical at a scene. Again, keep these people and their family in your thoughts and prayers, and heed the lessons that they have left behind for us.
Yeah. Amen.
Ron, that's all I got.
All right, buddy. So we'll be up on the Backstep again, probably in October. I haven't looked at the thing. I guess we're on every month. Sometimes we get a month off, but until we're back up on the Backstep again, take care of yourselves. Wear your mask, wear your hood, wear your seatbelt. Okay. at night when you hug your spouse and your boyfriends and girlfriends and your kids, hug them tight before you say goodnight. Give them a kiss. Tell them you love them, because we live in this unpredictable world with unpredictable things that happen. So with that, we're going to say goodnight. Take care of yourself. Be safe. Tommy, take care, buddy.
Stay safe, everybody.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex7.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LogRX.com.